Be introduced by Debbie Kay.
Thank you, Chair. Since 2015, the Council has been reviewing its community provision with the aim of building stronger communities and to ensure Council resources are targeted where they are most needed. Earlier this year, the Council undertook a comprehensive 12-week consultation exercise with stakeholders and the wider public on draft proposals as approved by this committee in January. This report highlights the results of the consultation exercise and makes recommendations to take the review forward. It should be noted that 72% of respondents supported the proposed vision highlighted in 4.2. This clear direction will enable the Council to ensure its resources are located in areas of the city where they are most needed, provide a solid base for our partnership arrangements with the voluntary sector and other agencies, and importantly, have the flexibility to respond to the changing needs of the city going forward. In Appendix A, we've produced a table which highlights the original review evidence, the draft proposals, the key findings from this consultation, officer comment, and the final proposals arising from this. A key focus of the consultation was to understand the views of people who may need to use Council's community services. As such, care has been taken to engage with a wide range of groups representing the city's diverse population. An equalities impact assessment has been carried out and is attached at Appendix B. The key recommendations are set out in 2.1 to 2.5 of this report. They set out a clear direction of travel for Ross Street, Nuns Way, Lawrence Way, Aikman Street, Brownsfield and Trumpington Pavilion. Further detailed feasibility work is recommended for both the Meadows and Buchan Street community centres to enable decisions to be made in the future. And there is a set of recommendations to address gaps in provision in the city identified by the review in Abbey, Queen Edith's, East Chesterton and Cherry Hinton. This work is continually evolving and I anticipate bringing a report on the future approach to community development in October and further reports on proposals for the Meadows and Buchan Street in the new year. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So, committee, any Councillor O'Connell?
So that last section where you were saying what was coming back to committee and when, could you just run through it a little slower? I got a bit about Meadows and Buchan Street in the new year. You mentioned some others in October?
So the Council's approach to community development in October.
Is the intention then, I'm taking it from the fact that Ross Street been delegated and the others haven't, does that mean, say, Nuns Way and Lawrence Way, where there's some sort of direction of travel but not a destination yet? Does that mean they'll come back to this committee? It says, if none are viable, so there's a series of options. Or is that sort of delegated to offices?
The direction of travel for those centres is set out in the report. The only delegation is regarding Ross Street. Further decisions need to be made after work on Meadows and Buchan Street.
Sorry, it's Nuns Way and William and Lawrence Way. Are they coming back as well? Because it's specifically finding alternative space, options for using Williams for voluntary organisation, or if none are viable, could be used for sports space only. We don't necessarily know yet what Nuns Way is eventually going to look like. So does that need to come back to us, or would that just be handled off?
I think we will need to establish what the options are for those. I'm very happy to include those in the reports that are coming back to this committee as an update to members as to progress.
Thank you. Councillor Glasgow.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not too surprised by the responses to the consultation. There's some concern about Meadows and Buchan Street. But in general, people seem to support the plans for each individual community centre based on the assumption that there shouldn't be an overall increase in community centre provision. But that underlying assumption hasn't really been asked. There is a question in the consultation: do you support the overall vision, which is asking, do you support this plan, and this plan, and this plan, and moving things around all in all? But I've spoken to some people who were frustrated that they couldn't say what they really wanted to, which was that they thought more community centres were needed. And this is a big consultation, this is a big exercise, 3 years in the making. I think that question should have been on there, because if people can't say what they're really concerned about, then they're less likely to do consultations. There's been a similar thing with the City Deal, the Moves consultation, where the big question hasn't actually been on the page, and it loses faith from people. There's been 178, was it, responses on the vision. 159 responses about the vision of the review, which is probably quite a lot by council consultation standards, but it's about 0.1% of the city. And for something of this size, you wouldn't hope for more people to respond. So I'm not sure what we can do about that now, but it's just a request for consultations to be braver about facing what people are really concerned about.
Thank you. I know the Executive Council wants to know, I don't know if someone wants to go first.
I think there's a number of points that you raised there, Councillor Gillespie. Thank you, Chair. And firstly, it was around the promotion and opportunity that we gave to people to respond, that actually covered quite a breadth of opportunity, where we targeted, particularly around the areas in facilities in question, but city-wide through a number of ways, and had, over 28 hours worth of face-to-face where we got a lot of information from people. We did quite an in-depth 12-week promotion there, so I think the opportunities, it went door, to every door through Cambridge Matters. So I think that we covered as much as we could to get out there to encourage people to respond. I think, and that said, where you said that people didn't have the opportunity to put across any comments that they wanted, the last question in the actual survey was an open one, that people could say anything that they wanted that they felt hadn't been covered, and there was not a significant response to that actually said we want to see an increased provision. There was an absolute value for community facilities, the independent facilities, the ones that the city has currently manages. The value of community facilities across the city was certainly highlighted, but we didn't have a significant response saying about an increased level of offer. And the vision, where it was in context of looking to particularly align our resource, the aims that had been very clear from the outset here, to align our resource to areas of high need, and to make sure that it's focused and that we were enhancing provision where we needed to, and making the best opportunities available, including opportunities for the voluntary sector. That was very detailed in the strategy that accompanied the set of proposals that we went out to and underpinned the vision. So I think the opportunity was there, certainly the discussions, and we had a number of people emailing in, face-to-face meetings, etc. So I think that opportunity was there. There was that open-ended question, which I think was very important, and we got a lot of information back from that giving that wide open question to the public.
I'll just let the Executive Council come back to you.
I thank Jackie for making clear how the consultation worked. In addition, I just wanted to draw Councillor Gillespie's attention to 2.3 of the recommendations, where the work that's gone on to date in respect of putting together the strategy has uncovered where we believe there are gaps in provision. So it identifies 4 wards where we believe that, not necessarily through the council, but in dialogue with third parties, the county council, other organisations, for future additional provision of community centres. So if you look at, there's reference here to the possible redevelopments of the possible developments of a community hub in Cherry Hinton, the East Barnwell Centre in Abbey, and further facilities in the future in Queen Edith and East Chesterton.
Councillor Gillespie.
Well, more community facilities, however they're provided are of course welcome. My point was about the consultation, and I think having an open-ended question at the end of the consultation is different from having a specific question which says, do you think that the council should provide more community centres? Do you think there's a need for more community centres? That would be more likely to elicit a specific response. When there's an open-ended box at the end of the consultation, I imagine most respondents would think, well, I can have a moan here, but this isn't something that the council is specifically interested in hearing about. This is something where I can do the equivalent of writing an email to an officer. So what I'm interested in now is whether the evidence provided by this consultation is considered to be evidence that there is not demand for more community centres, because people haven't said it in an unlabelled box. Is it now assumed that people don't believe there is a need for more community centres in the city, provided by the council, that is?
The reason why we don't ask questions such as that is that we do have to be careful not to create expectations around things that the council simply cannot deliver. I think if we'd gone out with a consultation that invited people to suggest we needed to provide a lot more, we might well have stirred up an expectation that the council has resource to do that. What this process has been doing since the beginning is trying to look at targeting the resource we do have where it is most needed. And the work that came to committee back in January was looking not only at what people aspire to have, but at where we can identify the needs for community centres to be. And there is a difference between the needs and the demands, and we're very keen to work with all the centres that we identified earlier on as part of the mapping exercise to pick up on the broad range of community interest and community demand, and indeed with other groups should they wish to come forward and talk about how they can work to make other venues function. But the council is not in a position to to stir up too much expectation. I think will only disappoint people.
Councillor Leslie, at some point.
Final point. I don't accept that the council cannot provide more community centres. I believe that it chooses not to. It does decide where it spends its money.
Could I please, Councillor Austin, do you indicate earlier?
Two things which were running out of my mind. One was in terms of the 2.3 suggesting other areas. I'm surprised that market isn't on there, because I thought market was one of the areas that was discussed as having a gap in no community service. That was one thing. And the other thing was, which isn't really covered by this, but there was an issue about the creation of a website to really notify the public about all our community provision. I was just wondering why we've got the opportunity of you here, that you could actually tell us where we're at with that.
Yeah.
All right, Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. On the first element around the gaps, market wasn't identified in the survey where we overlaid existing facilities and areas of need. And the consultation went out with the 4 areas that were identified, and in addition to, as you can see from the response, the high level of support in the ones that were identified. The only other conversations and comments that came out through the consultation was Petersfield, where we had quite a significant number of responses in relation to Petersfield not having a community facility, and a lot of discussion and one-to-one meetings have subsequently been had with representatives from that area, who absolutely understand where Petersfield is in relation to the needs analysis of the survey, but we are going to continue to work with them to maximise any opportunity for community facility development in that area, particularly through developer contributions and other and development opportunities. So we have already engaged in that and we're working with them in a different way. No other area or gap was actually identified through the consultation process. And with regard to the broader range of community facilities and the independence that we want to certainly promote, we have done, I think as we've discussed previously, we've done the verification and also got permission so that we weren't breaching any confidentiality and data protection with the facilities that we identified through the first phase of the audit work, and that is certainly ongoing. But we have at the moment on our website, it's one of the actions in the report to do that by August, but actually initial list is up on the website now. So what we're doing from that initial list that's up there is we're working with the web team about an interactive map to be able to highlight what's in an area, where those locations, those facilities are. That's happening now, and the next stage for me will be how we promote that to get people to know it's on there, how we develop the information that's currently available so that we can maximise information at the first point of contact for people, and then more importantly how we look at a sustainable long-term option for that to keep that information up to date, and how that might be owned and managed into the future, because we always know that as soon as we post something like that, something changes, especially in the voluntary sector where people's contacts, for example. So that'll be the next stages really around development of information, promotion, and the long-term sustainability of having that available, because it's already proved really valuable for people.
Councillor, I've got quite a list, but Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I think it's really good, and I think that it's moving in the right direction, and I know it's been a lot of hard work, so thank you for that. Two questions about Ross Street specifically. I know that quite a few residents contributed to the meetings that you had, sent in emailed queries, and completed the survey. I just wondered how their feedback might feed into any selection process that you would have for the voluntary organisation. And the second question is around the potential community use agreement. I wanted to know a bit more about how that might be monitored and if there'd be a chance for us to review it at any point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the first point around the engagement was very welcome. Both the online survey feedback, email exchanges, and the attendance. And we found very much that the people that engaged with regards to the questions around Ross Street were very supportive of it, and I think the percentage kind of backs that up. But I think it's important that what came from that was it reaffirmed that it is a valued local community facility, and that there was great support in pursuing the voluntary sector management option, which would look at different management arrangement. And I think in response to the consultation that was important for us, a couple of things came out. One of which was the need to definitely safeguard community use, and looking at the use that we have at the moment, all the information and data that we've collected around the use of Ross Street, that when we look to the next steps of developing the criteria, the process, the specification, that agreement going forward, that we use that information to build in what that looks like. Fundamentally, that was acknowledged as part of that consultation, very important. And I think the second thing was around the concern about capacity of a voluntary sector organisation, and we again tweaked the recommendation there to make sure that we in dealing with that criteria, we look at the information we provide, the risk for that for any organisation, so that we can support that. That's a really supportive process that we do engage going forward. And then the reassurance that wanted to be given that should a voluntary sector partner not be secured, that the council would retain the management for that. So I think that really was in response to the consultation that we had, and particularly at the local level. I think your question with regards to input as we move forward in the procedure is that we need to be mindful of procurement and how we currently engage in contracts, and that generally the process is agreed by members, or in this case we are asking for that delegated responsibility to design that process to the strategic director in consultation with Exec Council Chair and Spokes, so that we can move this on. So the process will have the member scrutiny, but then be an officer process, a bit like our grant process, our section 106, and the agreements worked up in a similar way. And all of those agreements, when we enter these arrangements, have monitoring terms attached to them. And I think that will be critical. It's critical in the way that we allocate our section 106 funding, that we ensure that there is wider access, and that can be have a number of different layers to it, from absolute on the ground monitoring, but also if there's complaints, for example. And I'm sure that we would soon hear if people were not feeling that the process was working. So I think it will be in a number of ways, and I'm not sure if I've covered everything that you asked now.
Thank you.
Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Okay, I've just got a couple of little things. We know that Brownsfield is really busy. It's always busy, isn't it? So we've got two halls, Church Hall, Methodist Hall, and the Methodist Church, Methodist Church just going through some building works. And would they be able to apply to become part of the community centre and work in partnership with the City Council?
Thank you, Chair. I think we've had conversations in the past with I think both of the organisations that you've mentioned, and I think the door is open for all communications. So I think the best thing there is if there's an appetite for them to have those. But I think I've met with the Methodist Church people on numerous occasions. So absolutely, and more I think when we start discussing our community development approach and how we want to do not just the buildings, because it's actually the difference that those buildings make and our activity that comes from buildings, that we start to engage with organisations in the area. So if they want to have discussions around buildings, around developing complementary programmes, which try and do is make sure that facilities are not competing against each other, that they've got affordable rates, that they're putting together programmes that really work for the community, we can certainly have conversations. And please do direct people to have a chat with us.
Councillor Gillespie.
Thanks, Chair. I thought I might just be able to clear up the confusion about market award that Councillor Austin mentioned. In the committee meeting where the report about the findings of the GNS survey, deprivation survey were brought, I did comment there that if the strategy for community centres had been about promoting cohesion and integration, as well as simply looking at deprivation, as well as providing the maximum possible reach, including the most possible people within a 15-minute walk radius, and market and Peterborough would have been obvious words to target.
Thank you for that. Councillor Collins,
Thank you. Just to pick up on your point about the mapping, that's great to hear. If possible, can we make sure the data is in an open format so that the many geeks we have in the city can take the data and play with it? There's quite a few good community projects that have come out of things like that. I'm seeing some nodding out of the corner of my eye, actually, some more effective. But if possible, that'd be great to have.
I will forward that to the people that know
The
how
other
to do
geeks,
that.
yes. Thanks.
yeah, bringing
I think that's a very interesting suggestion. I mean, we were talking about open data and enabling the public to play with it to their heart's content and to make it better. I mean, if we're really serious about engaging with the voluntary sector, then we must engage with people who know about their area, and if they have information, as Jackie was saying, about a revised programme in a particular centre that we don't know about, but yet they know about and are able and willing to update that information, and that's only a good thing. Saves a lot of staff resource from our side.
Councillor Gillespie.
Of course, doing this project before the consultation and allowing people to use it to visualise the results in more intuitive ways would have been even better than doing it after a consultation.
Sure, that was noted. I've nothing left on my list. Anyone for any more? In which case, we'll go to the recommendations. It's in the second circulation, page 4. Oh, of course, you may.
No, that's fine. It's not. It's my fault, I should have said. I just wanted to, at this juncture, give thanks to officers, particularly Jackie and Alison, for their hard work in putting together the strategy, the mapping work, the analysis of the data resulting in this community centres facility strategy. It's a strategy that's built to last, taking into account the current and future needs of the city and its residents. This is a bold and ambitious strategy with much support, as the consultation results make clear, from the general public. However, there's much more work to do, with feasibility work on the measures proposals and more work to be done too in respect of the voluntary sector managing some of our centres possibly in the future. So, as one of the recommendations make clear, reporting back on implementation of the strategy will take place. And I hope that when the committee considers and votes the recommendations as a whole, they will acknowledge, as a consequence of the proposals within the strategy, this authority's continued commitment to community provision, serving local communities, strengthening the voluntary sector, and tackling inequality and poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope the committee will forgive me for not reading out in full the recommendations. However, let me proceed quickly. We are recommended to adopt the proposals related to 6 centres: Ross Street, Nuns Way Pavilion, Lawrence Way, Aiken Street, Brownsfield and Trumpington Pavilion, to modify the proposals for 2 of the centres, the Meadows and Buchan Street, to adopt the proposals as originally outlined in relation to meeting identified needs where there are gaps in provision relating to Abbey, Queen Edith, East Cheston and Cherry Hinton, to delegate the authority to deliver the proposals as required in relation to Ross Street, and to report back to the committee on progress with delivering the strategy as described in the action set out in section 5. All those in favour?
7, Chair.
Any against? And an abstention? Thank you. Does the Executive Council accept the recommendation?
I do indeed. Thank you.
We will move on then to item 11, which in my pack anyway is on page 29 of the second circulation. This is a review of strategic partnerships, health and wellbeing for
Declaration of interest on the members of the Health and Wellbeing Board.
Thank you for that, Councillor. We've got that. This is going to be introduced, I'm told, by Debbie Kay. I've told someone else and then someone else.
Well, I was hoping Graham Saint was actually going to be here to deliver the report. So between us, you've got Suzanne and I think, but we, between us, we will be able to cover this. I think this report is fairly self-explanatory. It sets out the current set of arrangements in place for health and children's services in the county and the changing nature of how these are organised. The report arose because members of the Strategy Resources Committee were very keen to understand how these partnerships were working and also how the council was using its voice on the partnerships to raise issues of importance in the city. So there's a lot of detail here. It doesn't have a formal decision as such, so a lot of it is for your information. And Suzanne and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Debbie. Any questions or comments from the committee? Councillor O'Connell.
A comment rather than a question. I might be addressing this to Councillor Abbott, I'm not sure. A particular area of concern of mine that's been highlighted to me recently is the effects of mental health and homelessness, how they interact. So, it just basically clear that if that comes up, if you could push that, because some of the evidence I've seen, it is pretty bad. People who find themselves homeless do suffer far worse than everyone else.
I think the Executive Council wants to jump in.
Unless Councillor Abbott wants to say something.
No, you go ahead.
Well, we had the local health partnership this afternoon, and we had discussions about the way forward regarding the Health and Wellbeing Board and how our partnerships with other authorities and stakeholders should proceed in the future. And as part of that discussion, I made the point, and I think others did, about the importance of looking at homelessness and mental health, because one of your colleague, Councillor Moore, made a very salient point. There's still a disparity between physical and mental health and how it's treated within the NHS and by other services as well. So that's really much on our radar. That's really on our radar, that's for sure. And we'll continue to push for greater work on that issue.
Councillor Abbott, do you think the Executive Council covered it, or is there anything you'd
No,
like
I think it's covered
I
it.
think fair enough, in which case we'll move on. Councillor Sinnott.
Thanks, Chair. So in relation to the children's aspect of this, there's reference made to mental health and parental mental health and drug and alcohol misuse within the family environment. So I'd like to know how, what profile domestic violence has, or coercive control, and is this something that is specifically looked for? Is it recognised as overlapping with some of the issues that have been mentioned here? Just like to know how it's viewed.
As you know, there's a new strategic partnership being set up to look at domestic abuse and sexual violence. What I'd like to do is to answer your question fully by explaining how that sits within these new structures.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to copy that in response to the rest of the committee, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? In which case, we'll move to the recommendation. Singular. The Executive Council is recommended to continue the work with these key external partnerships to ensure that public agencies and others can together address the strategic issues affecting Cambridge, including the growing homelessness issue in the city, and that the concerns of Cambridge citizens are responded to. All those in favour? Thank you. And does the Executive Council accept the recommendation? Thank you. Excellent. And finally, yes indeed, back to the first pack, item 12, outdoor sports awards to external sports facilities, and we have Ian Roscoe, please. Yeah, sorry, apologies Ian, it's just been pointed out to me there are colour copies of some of the documents. I don't know if everyone got them, but there are extra coloured copies at the back. And Jackie has sprung into action and is going to hand them.
Additional diagram of the principles, which isn't.
It just looks so much nicer.
Thank you. Okay, Ian, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The report is coming back for some historic projects opened up in 2015. They also came back to this committee in June 2016 that basically asked these organisations to see if they could progress their projects or in future possibly lose some of the monies allocated to them. I'm pleased to say that they've taken the mantle, and the organisations have actually really developed their projects. We have here the Cambridge Rugby Club and North Cambridge Academy, and also the King's School. So Cambridge Rugby Club have now moved their projects forward. They've actually received planning permission. They've been out and got external awards, both from the national governing body and from local organisations, and they're now looking to deliver a range of improvements to their changing room facilities, pitch facilities, that will open them up to more public use and develop women's rugby, also working with the Cambridge United Trust as well to actually get obviously women's football down onto the site as well, and work with other organisations, again, such as American football. The other organisation there is the North Cambridge Academy. Again, they've gone out, they've got full planning permission for their sites, which includes tennis courts, possibility of actually adding netball courts to the markings, and floodlighting as well. And again, they've got some external grants from organisations there to be able to help facilitate the delivery of the project. They have, though, come back to us. We originally allocated some awards from the North Area Committee. The project has come now slightly over what they originally envisaged, so actually the request today is actually top them for another £25,000, so it's an award for £125,000 to the scheme coming from central funds that we have for outdoor sport. The third project is for the King's College School. They originally had a project that was looking at a swimming pool and a sports centre. and they then sort of on review of that downgraded their project slightly just to a sports hall facility and changing rooms there. And in discussions we've had with them, unfortunately we haven't been able to agree a community use ability to use their facility for pay and play, which we would like for a sports hall there. So the school has unfortunately actually decided to withdraw their application from there. So the recommendation now is to reallocate the funds that had been provisionally earmarked for them back into the central strategic pot for us to be able to allocate for further projects. The appendices, again, is one of the questions we sometimes get asked here at the committees, what would the community use agreements look like? And hopefully we'll try to detail some of the appendices now as what these community use agreements would look like and how they can publicly access or public can actually access the facilities there, particularly on sites like North Cambridge Academy. So we're looking to actually have free public access to their facility in line as we do with other courts across the city. And then actually work with development programmes there with the active communities team to promote both sites there for public engagement. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Members of the committee, comments, questions? Councillor O'Connell.
A comment, although it's disappointing that the King's School item fell through, I'm personally very reassured that community use agreements are taken seriously. It would be great if we made it work, but the fact that as a council we're standing up and saying, look, it's not to the community, we're not going to give you what is quite a lot of money. It's good to see occasionally, even if it's for unfortunate reasons.
So I keep breaking my rule of not commenting from Chair, but I'd say I echo that. That'd be any other questions? Oh, sorry.
No, I just want to, we have a community use agreement there for a reason, because this is public money. This is taxpayers' money being used to further our objective and aspiration, which is to enhance community use of our sports facilities in the city. And if, to excuse the pun, some organisations are not playing ball, then we've got to put down a line and say, sorry, that's it. We have to allocate our funding in a fair way, which furthers use of our sports facilities across the city to those who would most benefit from it.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
So can I just ask a quick question again? So the 200,000, is it, that was potentially going to go to the King's School, has that just gone back into a pot? And is there any timescale on when that has to be spent?
The award to them was £125,000. It was originally £50,000 from West Central Committee, and the other was coming from the strategic pot for the use of indoor sports in there. So both of those will be returned now to strategic pots for indoor sport and outdoor sport, which are now actually allocated more strategically rather than at ward level there, again following the adoption of both the indoor sports strategy and the playing pitch strategy at committees last October. At the moment, no, there's no impeding expenditure dates on those time-limited funds, and there are some other larger projects we're working up with other organisations at the moment those funds could be allocated to, again, particularly West Central.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, with that, for the last time, where am I? Page 130, in terms of the recommendations. The Executive Council is recommended to confirm approval of the provisionally allocated £200,000 grant to the Cambridge Rugby Union Football Club for new changing rooms, subject to a community use agreement and officer approval of the business case for the grant under delegated authority. To allocate and approve an additional £25,000 of outdoor sports section 106 funding to the existing £100,000 grant for a total award of £125,000 to North Cambridge Academy for the provision of 4 floodlit tennis courts, subject to a community use agreement and officer approval of the business case for the grant under delegated authority, and to deallocate the £75,000 of indoor sports section 106 contributions and £50,000 of outdoor sports section 106 contributions currently earmarked to the King's College School, sports hall and changing rooms, following withdrawal of the grant request by the grant applicant. All those in favour? Thank you. Does the Executive Council accept the recommendation?
I do.
And with that, that's that. Thank you all.
Thank you.